What's a popular tourist attraction that isn't overrated? It actually deserves all the hype. Story 1: The Smithsonian Air and Space Museum's Udvar-Hazy Center. It's amazing no matter your interest level in the subject. Wear your walking shoes because it's huge. Parking is $15 and entrance is free. Story 2: Pompeii. I had really high expectations and the place still exceeded them. It's absolutely massive. You could spend multiple days there. If you have any interest in history whatsoever, I promise you'll like the place. Some of the details are insanely well preserved. Like there's a bathhouse there where you can still see graffiti people scribbled on the walls. There's immaculately preserved tile art all over the place, including a famous one of a dog that I just loved. There's a spot where you can see a political campaign ad written on a wall. There's also this one spot where there's a whole other layer below the room that is from a Semitic culture from about 500 BC that lived there before the Romans moved in. Like Pompeii isn't the oldest thing in Pompeii, and that stuff too is remarkably well preserved. You just really get a sense of what it felt like to live in a Roman city. It's probably the coolest thing I've ever seen. Herculaneum is great too if you're short on time. It's got a lot of the same stuff as Pompeii, but the site is smaller, and they're still excavating it. I think only about 70 has been dug up. There were archaeologists actively working on it when I was there. Story 3: Pompeii was so freaking awesome. I spent an entire day there and wished I could have been there for longer. It's been years since I went and they continue to excavate, so I can only imagine it's even more interesting now. Story 4: The Pantheon in Rome. It is the oldest continually inhabited building in the world. It is mind-boggling to realize that Marcus Aurelius himself had entered through the same portico as we use today, and to give it further point of comparison, when the great Basilica of St. Peter was built in the Vatican, the Pantheon had already been standing for 15 centuries. Story 5: Redwoods in California. Feels like you're in prehistoric times. I expected to see a dinosaur more than once there. Absolutely magical and breathtaking. Story 6: Bruges is unbelievable. You can walk for hours and never seen the same building twice. I mean by that every building has tons of super unique architecture features, ornamentation, decoration, and scenery. Most places you go you can see the same building over and over throughout the city, not Bruges. Incredible food, wonderful people, great climate. Story 7: The Met and MoMA in New York City. All the years of growing up in a small town and seeing the works of art in textbooks made it that much more impressive. You are walking along and bam, there is something that was in your 5th grade textbook, and there's another, and another, and another. All these things that existed before in books are right there in front of you and close enough to touch but don't. Story 8: Architecture boat tour in Chicago is excellent, interesting, and a great way to see the city. Edit to add specifically the one done by the Chicago Architecture Museum, adding, if you're a tourist, the absolute best day to really see the city is to go up in the Hancock Tower for the aerial view, then do the architecture boat tour for an immersive view and finish with a walkout to Navy Pier for the skyline. Bonus if you can squeeze in a boat ride on Lake Michigan. Story 9: Most of the ones on Atlas Obscura are worth checking out if they sound interesting to you. Unlike other travel guides, I find their stuff to generally be as interesting as it sounds on paper. If you are bored of skylines and wish to find more weird to do while traveling, you'll love it. Edit: am particularly partial to the animated KFC chicken building. The Spam Museum also never seen a place go out of the way to be inclusive of neurodivergent visitors. Plus Route 66 is iconic for a reason. Story 10: I know this will sound bad at first, but especially with current climate of the world it is more important than ever for so many reasons. Auschwitz-Birkenau. We have all heard the stories, read books, and seen movies. Unfortunately the WW2 generation has passed and their first-hand accounts are now stories, legends, history, being there. It's really difficult to explain. The reality of it is emotionally disturbing and horrifying, and holy this happened. The efficiency and the incredible thought that went into the concept of eradicating an entire group of people, dark beyond words. This can't happen again. Going there will change your life. We are better together, love. Story 11: The Colosseum in Rome. You walk in and instantly feel the weight of history. It's massive, surreal, and somehow still standing after nearly 2,000 years. For once, the crowds are justified. Story 12: Venice isn't overrated. It's absolutely one of the wonders of the world. If humanity disappears and aliens look at the ruins of our civilization, Venice will prove that we weren't useless. Story 13: The Tower of London and Westminster Abbey are both worth visiting more than once. I hesitate to call them tourist attractions, although they do get plenty of tourists. Story 14: Great Smoky Mountain National Park. Too many people go down to Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, Gatlinburg, and they never go into the park. It's absolutely amazing, and we're spending days exploring all its natural beauty and the animals that live there and the ecosystem. You can't go wrong being in the Great Smoky Mountains. Story 15: The Guggenheim in Bilbao and the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. Both buildings have to be two of the most beautiful and interesting ever made, and seeing in person is highly recommended. I'd also visit both during the day and night. Story 16: Paris. If you don't like Paris, you don't want to like Paris. And people that complain about French people, time and time again, found them absolutely lovely and willing to go way out of their way to help you, in Paris and all over the country. Story 17: The Grand Canyon. Words and even photos can't quite describe the beauty of a piece of nature millions of years on the making. If you stand at the top and only look for a few seconds, like sitcoms do, maybe you would think it is boring, but go down into the canyon and your view changes. Story 18: San Diego Zoo and the Grand Canyon. The San Diego Zoo is worth the hype, in the Grand Canyon we've gone at least 5 times and it's still just as amazing as it was the first time. Story 19: Yellowstone. Parts of it feel non-Earth-like. The clay pot area is just unbelievable until you see it. Grand Prismatic is stunning. Old Faithful is punctual and cool. Hard to believe these are in the same park quite a distance apart. Story 20: Santorini. If you can go when it isn't absolutely packed with tourists, it is truly a sight to stand at the top of the caldera and take in the architecture and view at sunset. Story 21: There are a lot of folks here touting natural wonders and historical sites, but the place that immediately came to my mind is Dollywood, the theme park in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. I grew up an hour or so outside of it, and despite going to 18 theme parks across the country including Disney and Universal, I would still put Dollywood as number 1. This is Dolly Parton's theme park in East Tennessee. It is set into the mountains of the Smokies, and it is one of the most beautiful places on earth. The entire park is themed wonderfully and utilizes the natural beauty of the mountain its own to great effect. It's wooded and green, and as you start going up the mountain, you get amazing picturesque views. Beyond that, it has some phenomenal rides. They've poured a lot of money into the roller coaster scene there, and I would pit it against Cedar Point, Busch Gardens, or any Six Flags park in a heartbeat. It also has a great entertainment lineup also, with Dolly-themed musicals, live bands throughout the park, lots of bluegrass, gospel, 50s music, some modern stuff here and there, and just generally pleasant music throughout the park. The food is incredible. Some of the best southern food you'll ever have, including this fried chicken at Aunt Granny's buffet that is to die for. They do these food festivals where you can get all kinds of stuff, all home-cooked, all delicious, and beyond that, the park staff exudes southern hospitality. Everyone is super friendly. The parkgoers seem to be nicer, too. If you've ever dealt with entitled folks at a Disney park, you know what I mean now. The rest of Pigeon Forge and Sevier County around it is about as tourist-trappy as you can get. Go-karts, mini-golf, Ripley's, airbrush t-shirt places, outlet malls, everything designed to money out of you as quickly as possible. A lot of it can be pretty fun. The Gatlinburg Space Needle has a huge pinball arcade at the bottom of it, for example, but it's pricey for what it is. All that said, if you're looking for a family-friendly vacation outside of an Orlando kind of trip, I highly recommend Pigeon Forge, and you absolutely must do Dollywood. Story 22: Natural History Museum in New York. I'm from Chicago and thought it was just a bigger field museum. It's quite a bit more. Like jets, the Udvar-Hazy branch of the Smithsonian Air and Space was really cool, just a bit of a schlep unless you're flying out of Dulles. If we can set aside any morals about colonialism and stealing cultural artifacts, the British Museum is everything you've heard. And shout out to Churchill's War Rooms. Wife and I met working at the Chicago Museum of Science and Industry, leaving that off the list because we are probably biased. That said, no one really does science museums like the Exploratorium in SF. Story 23: The Statue of Liberty. I am extremely cynical about the United States and was basically dragged complaining in the 1990s by a friend whose father came into the United States through Ellis Island. And when I tell you all of us stood and just sobbed on the boat, looking at the stunning image of a woman lifting a lamp to welcome struggling immigrants, and picturing how they felt when they saw it, the idea of America. The idea of a place where poor people with nothing left could come to try to make a life was so moving. I just had no idea America, especially now, so does not live up to the ideals we were taught in school, but the concept of the wretched masses being welcomed with open arms still makes me choke up. It's like the opposite of jingoistic. It felt humanist and really beautiful. Story 24: Every national park and rec area I went to in Utah blew my mind. Photos can't even begin to convey what it's like being there. Just the drive on Highway 12 is incredible on its own. I have a new definition of vast after being there. Story 25: Piota High, aka Milford Sound, South Island of New Zealand. Stunning in every way. My wife and I were supposed to see it in 2022, but there was a torrential rainstorm in the valley with the road to it coming up from Invercargill, and it was a long drive through it, so we said forget it and went straight to Queenstown. This last November, we were in Queenstown again after spending 2 weeks on the North Island and prior to driving up to Nelson, and I surprised my wife with a flight on an 8-passenger plane over the mountains for a boat cruise through the Sound. Both the flight and cruise were worth way more than I paid. Story 26: I thought the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan would be kinda neat, but was not prepared for what we found there. The Museum of American Innovation is a 12-acre indoor collection of antique machinery, pop culture items, automobiles, locomotives, aircraft, and other items from the great American industrial age. If you maintain a brisk pace, you may see 90 of it in a single day. If you're a history and old technology nerd like me, you'll need the better part of 2 days, then. Another full day for the adjacent Greenfield Village, where Henry Ford dismantled and reassembled Thomas Edison's laboratory, the Wright brothers' bicycle shop, a small courthouse where a young attorney by the name of Abraham Lincoln first practiced law, and a lot more. Ride an original Model T around the cobblestone streets, or ride the old steam locomotive around the whole place, then. Another day to tour Ford's original 1918 auto assembly plant at nearby River Rouge, and the Willow Run, Michigan Flight Museum, which focuses on aviation history, and the bomber plant where Ford produced a B-24 Liberator bomber every 64 seconds. Story 27: World's largest ball of twine. You know what you're gonna get, and it delivers. It is not overrated or underrated, It is a big ball of twine. If your expectations aren't met or are exceeded, that is totally on you. Story 28 Grand Canyon, Bryce Canyon, Arches National Park, Yosemite, Zion, the Painted Desert, Goblin Valley, Monument Valley, the Slot Canyon's missing so many out, and there are still so many I haven't seen. The USA has some breathtaking national parks. I'm so grateful to my parents for taking us on USA road trips when I was little. The sights are unlike anything I've ever seen in the UK. Story 29 Pike Place Market in Seattle. It's a working farmers market with amazing produce, seafood, flowers, crafts and restaurants. The spice market is extraordinary. There are 200 vendors in the market, which is used by locals and tourists daily. Story 30 NYC Yes is dirty. Yes, they are rats everywhere, but man, the historical buildings, bustling streets, the so many things you can do. Not city is like that in the USA. Story 31 Italy in general. Every famous attraction location I've done was worth the hype. Others have mentioned Pompeii, Iliad the Pantheon, Sistine Chapel Raphael Rooms, Uffizi Gallery, Venice whole thing. The Italians don't need to overhype their attractions. They have so many great things. Story 32 If anyone hasn't seen how big a lake can get, I recommend seeing one of the Great Lakes. Lakes so big you cannot see the other side of them. I sometimes take for granted living so close to Lake Ontario. Story 33 Surprised no one has said the Colosseum in Rome. It's really baffling that stadium is still up and so well preserved. It lived up to the hype, and if I was to go to Rome again I would definitely want to get back in there. Story 34 I may get shouted down for this, but I was actually amazed at the St. Louis Arch. Didn't go up it. I'm pretty sure they would frown at a big puddle of fear in the elevator, but even from the outside, it was pretty incredible. Story 35 It feels really weird to say this, but Auschwitz, being there was like nothing I've ever experienced before. It was overcast and rained heavily at the end of the tour, which added to the heaviness. Sadness. Seeing the rooms full of glasses, shoes, medication bottles, etc., was devastating. Our tour guide told us a story about how he once had someone on a tour find his own luggage in the barack that housed some of the luggage behind a glass wall. He recognized it and confirmed it was his when he was able to read the tag with his name on it. Being that there are so few Holocaust survivors left, I feel places like Auschwitz and Birkenau are more important than ever before. As awful as it may sound, we need people to visit these sites and listen to the atrocities that took place. Story 36 Hampton Court Palace. Just amazingly beautiful, and the gardens are beautiful too. I'd say Versailles for the same reason, even though we went in July and it was pandemonium. Story 37 Devil's Tower. Cool. I can see the big rock thing. As you're driving towards it, an hour later, still driving. Whoa, that big rock thing is pretty tall. Then you hike around the bottom of it and take a picture on top of the blocks of stone that have fallen off the sides, then use binoculars to see rock climbers a third of the way up the rock face, and then you truly realize how tiny you are. Story 38 Waimea Canyon on Kauai. It's the Grand Canyon of the Pacific. Also, the Na Pali Coast on Kauai. Though it is a boat trip, much is inaccessible by land. If you're ever in the Great Lakes region of the mainland, Cedar Point is the pinnacle of roller coaster parks. Hands down, the best amusement park in the world if you want big, fast, twisty rides. It's a gem on the banks of Lake Erie. Story 39 Grand Canyon often wins best place in the world to visit in surveys. I didn't think it would be that great, just a desert with a big pit, but I have to agree. Story 40 Stonehenge. I expected a pile of rocks and it turned out to be very interesting, and I have a much deeper respect for the history of the whole area now. Story 41 Totally agree. I had lived in the Bay Area off and on for 18 years and had never thought to tour Alcatraz. Always considered it to be the height of tourist traps. I finally did visit in the final week before moving out of Northern California. Man, was I wrong all those years. Alcatraz is a fascinating little world within the world, almost too surreal to grasp, visible from the city and the North Bay, but hard to actually get to. Booking long in advance is required. A unique experience. I am very glad I finally took advantage of it. Story 42 I don't know if it's a tourist attraction, but we moved to Washington State a few years ago, and the first time I saw the Olympic Mountains and Mount Rainier was unbelievable. I love to drive to spots where I can sit and stare at them in all of their beauty while the world is so still and quiet around me. It really puts into perspective how small we are, and how beautiful the planet is. Seeing those giant mountains is a breathtaking experience. Story 43 Sedona, Arizona. Such a beautiful and majestic place. They say the place has energy to it, and I truly believe it. Felt so good and peaceful when I went. Story 44 My partner and I went to NYC last November. Never been to the States before. We're both Irish. We both agreed that the Ellis Island Museum was up there as one of the best experiences we had when we were in New York. The Irish diaspora, as massive as it is only a small part of the amazing history of immigration to the United States, and seeing the history of what certain members of my family would have experienced being processed through Ellis Island was very grounding. The U.S. presidential elections happened while we were visiting NYC. Ellis Island put a lot of things into perspective. America is built on the backs of immigrants, and needs very desperately to remember that. Story 45 Hobbiton in New Zealand is absolutely fantastic. You have wizards on stilts to sell the idea you're hobbit-sized, fireworks, the real green dragon, some hobbit holes having real interiors. Story 46 Hawaii seemed unreal from the moment I got off the plane till the moment I got back on. Every tourist attraction was charming and every overhyped thing exceeded my already high expectations. Story 47 The Trevi Fountain, it's fantastic. The only problem is you have to be there at a time when it's quiet enough that you can stand back from it and see it all at once without all the tourists throwing coins in it from 8 inches away distracting from the view. If you can manage that, it's a very impressive piece. Story 48 The Lane Fortuna Waterfall in Costa Rica. The stairs to get to it and back are grueling, but the trek is very worth it. The scenery is breathtaking, and the water is so refreshing to swim in. The one item on my bucket list is to visit it again. Story 49 Horseshoe Bend The view is so breathtaking, it almost distorts your sense of scale. It wasn't until I spotted a tiny boat drifting along the river below that I truly grasped just how massive it really is. Story 50 Teotihuacan was totally worth it Imo. If it were not for all the peddlers trying to sell jaguar calls or would have been 1010, that and the Central Square and Templo Mayor in Mexico City were awesome. Other than that I loved every minute I spent along the Karakoram Highway in both Pakistan and China, truly breathtaking. Story 51 Scotland. We had to cancel plans in 2020 and finally got around to making the trip in 2024. After all the time planning and reconsidering things we had very high hopes for it and it was way better than we expected. Isle of Skye and village of Oban were especially awesome. Story 52 Only when it comes to sneaking behind her back for a drunken midnight kebab. Edit this isnt the post I clicked respond to. I don't know what happened. Edit 2 I read your question. And my answer is Skellig Michael Coe Carey, Ireland a real-life Jedi island. Beyond the Star Wars connection, the boat trip alone is unforgettable, and climbing those ancient monk-built steps with puffins flying past your face feels like you've left Earth entirely. Story 53 As a resident of southern New Brunswick, Canada, this place, most of the locals don't understand how good we have it. They fixate on the stuff we're missing and overlook all that we have. Amazing hiking, canoeing, and kayaking, the highest tides in the world and myriad different coastal landscapes in which to appreciate them. Historic downtowns packed with Victorian and Edwardian architecture, arguably the world's best seafood, and lots of great pubs and restaurants, a ridiculous number of microbreweries for beer lovers, and several vineyards and distilleries for everyone else. Comfortable summers that don't get too hot, beautiful autumn colors, relatively mild winters, just cold enough for skiing, friendly, hospitable people. If you're from the south and you want to cool off at the end of long, hot summer, maybe consider an Atlantic Canada cruise or just fly up and visit. We'll treat you right. Just leave the MAGA hat and attitude at home, please. Story 54 Cappadocia, Turkey. There's fairy chimneys, an ancient underground city, a fabulous outdoor museum, cave hotels and restaurants. It was absolutely fantastic. Story 55 The entire city of Porto in Portugal, Golden Gate Bridge. I live in the city and am in awe every time I cross the bridge. It's especially pretty when you're coming out of the Robin Williams Tunnel. Story 56 WW2 Museum on New Orleans. Insightful explanations of the different battles, especially the Normandy landing, the Pacific War, etc. Could not see it all in one. Forget Bourbon Street and visit this museum. Story 57 The City Museum in St. Louis, Missouri. If you don't know, it's an old factory building in downtown converted into a giant jungle gym art sculpture. You can climb on everything and ride the old chutes from like the 10th floor to the bottom. There's a plane and a school bus hanging off the roof you can go in. It's all amazing. I can't believe they have insurance. Oh, the only sad part is that the guy behind it died creating his second masterpiece in North St. Louis along the riverfront, which would have been called Cement Land. An old cement factory he was turning into a medieval fortress. We'll never get to experience Cement Land, but the videos on YouTube look like it was gonna be rad. Story 58 The Pantheon in Rome absolutely deserves the hype. It's incredible to see. You'll never forget the look on my dad's face when we turned a corner and he saw it for the first time. It was just amazement. Then wait till you get inside, to think of when this thing was built, thousands of years ago, and it's still standing as powerful as ever. Juste incroyable. Story 59 The Eiffel Tower, especially at night. You know the Eiffel Tower is beautiful when you still enjoy it on vacation with your soon-to-be ex-wife after you found out 2 weeks before going on this European vacation that she cheated on you. Story 60 Mount Haleakala National Park, Maui. Sit on the edge and drink wine while watching the sunset is spectacular. Just bring something to wrap up in as it is very cold and something to sit on. That red lava gravel took the seat out of my blue jeans. There is also an observatory and you can ride bikes down the 2-hour drive to get there. Highest point I have ever been. Bucket list good. Story 61 I've been to quite a few of the places mentioned already and agree with the comments. My addition: if you have a day and happen to be in the Yucatan Peninsula, Mexico, don't hesitate to visit Chichen Itza, very interesting history, and the use of cosmology and physics to build the structures was amazing for the time. Story 62 Hoi An, Vietnam. Super pretty and had one of my favorite meals ever. Also Maya Beach, Thailand. Crystal clear water, white sand, kept singing Pure Shores to myself. Story 63 The Sydney Opera House. It's even better and more impressive in person. You can walk through the Royal Botanic Garden and walk right up to the Opera House. The ocean is right there. I didn't do the tour, I wish I did, but I did go inside to use the bathroom, which were also very nice. I had to at least go inside since I was there. At night you can see it lit up from a lot places in Sydney. It's just a beautiful piece of architecture, and I had no idea there was a huge botanical garden right there as well. Story 64 The Terracotta Warriors near Xi'an, China. I've seen the pyramids in Giza. They make you feel small, like you understand how tiny we are in the planet. I've seen the Roman Colosseum. Nice. I've seen the Great Wall. I've gone to the top of the Burj Khalifa. I've been to the sites of 3 wonders of the ancient world. The scale of the Terracotta Warriors defies human understanding. Maybe not better than the pyramids, but similar. You stand in one space where you can barely see the far end, and know this is just a small piece. Story 65 Banff National Park in Alberta, Canada. It's absolutely stunning. The vibrant blue lakes, massive mountains, and wildlife everywhere. It looks and feels like a dream. Story 66 The Tower of London. So much to see, and the guards who serve as guides are great. They give out so much information about the tower and English history, in such an entertaining way. Story 67 National parks in the US in general. They are the tourist attractions of the country, and they are all breathtaking, at least the ones I have seen. Story 68 Going through the Rocky Mountains on a train was pretty wild, or going on the Maid of the Mist near Niagara Falls. I haven't been to far-off lands because flying scares me. Story 69 The Taj Mahal. I was ready to be underwhelmed, but when you see it you know immediately you are gazing at something extraordinary. I thought about what about it makes it extraordinary, and I believe for me the answer is the marble that it's clad in. I think the marble absorbs and radiates the sky and light, and the whole edifice looks like a shimmering dream in the sky. Story 70 Denali National Park in Alaska. Just ineffably gorgeous. Definitely have the sense that the place is wild and you are a guest or even intruder, so be on your best behavior. Story 71 Petra comes to mind. A lot of people only go for a half day, but it's hard to state the sheer size of it. I walked like 20k steps that day and didn't see it all. Imagine the beautiful desert in Utah if it had thousands of ruins scattered in the landscape, one after another. The first view of the monastery that everyone thinks of is also just as cool as you hope it will be. Story 72 The RMS Queen Mary in Long Beach. The city has been doing a truly wonderful job of renovating and preserving her. They're opening up more and more spaces, and it's been a delight. She was on the verge of collapse before the city took over, and they've spent a lot of money getting her restored beautifully, and shall be around for generations more to come. Story 73 Rembrandt's The Night Watch at the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. So much larger than I expected. It absolutely took my breath away at first sight. I stared at it for hours and kept coming up with amazing details. Story 74 Like Place Market in Seattle. It's not just the top tourist spot in the city and the PNW, but it's a real working market and it's fantastic. Locals who live in the city core use it just like tourists. This morning I went and got salmon, giant garlic, local blood orange balsamic, coffee and a cinnamon roll. Picked up a gorgeous huge bouquet of flowers for cheap. Before I left for home, it's my Saturday morning routine. Story 75 Giant's Causeway, Northern Ireland. Standing on the edge of the Giant's Causeway, it kind of hits you this place doesn't feel real. Massive hexagonal stones just rise up out of the ocean in cold, crashing waves like something out of a fantasy movie. It's wild, ancient and makes you feel small in the best possible way. I've been nearly 40 times in the last 20 years and am still awestruck by it every time I visit. Story 76 Los Angeles outside of the Hollywood Strip. The Getty Villa I particularly recommend. Venice Beach and Santa Monica Pier are both gorgeous. Griffith Park is awesome. The taco stands are top-notch, and there's no lack of bars and clubs.